Alright, the last video we're going to do in this series is just drawing a simple state chart diagram using Microsoft Visio 2007 and the UML templates. So to create your drawing, go to File, New, Software and Database, and UML Model Diagram US Units. This will load, as usual, a blank drawing canvas and all the UML templates on the left-hand side. We're going to do a state chart diagram, so we'll click on state chart and we'll see all the shapes here that we're going to use: states, transitions, initial states, and final states. Now we're doing a simple state chart diagram, and we're using Visio just to do drawings of state chart diagrams. We're not worried about defining classes and properties of classes and all the stuff that Visio can do on the back end to integrate with VisualStudio.net for development. So we're going to do it real simply. We're basically just using these as shapes to create diagrams that then we can use in other things like Microsoft Word reports or Visio or PowerPoint presentations or on the web. So to start, I'm just going to drag two states onto the canvas. And I'm also going to drag an initial state and a final state. And I want to zoom in. Okay, now I want to name my two states. Let's assume that this is managing the hospital status for a patient that is in our hospital system, and we have two states. We have a patient who's admitted and a patient who is released. Okay, and if there are any transitions that have to happen between these two states, we represent those with the arrows from the transition shape on the left-hand side. So I'm going to go ahead and connect these arrows to these different states by dragging the ends until they highlight in red. I'm also going to show one coming from the initial state to admitted and from released to the final state. Now, in these state chart diagrams, since Visio is designed to work with VisualStudio.net for creating code, there are a lot of things with these UML models that we can do to define class properties, define events, define triggers, define pseudocode, and so forth. We're not going to do any of that because we're just using this to draw some simple state diagrams. So to label these different transitions, if we were to double click on these things, the properties are going to come up, and the name doesn't label the actual transition. And there is not really a way to put text on there that is just plain text. We don't want to use a guard expression, and we don't want to create any events because we're not really developing code. So instead, I think the best way just to draw a state chart diagram is to use these shapes to show the transitions and states, and then label the events with just using a simple text box. So to create a simple text box, we're going to click on the text tool, the A up in the menu, and you will see that the little cursor pops up, and we just click that cursor wherever we want, and we can then type text. So if the first event is that the patient checks in, we make a little text box, and you'll see that that's there. We can go back and click on the pointer tool to get the arrow back. Then we can move that around, adjust its size, and adjust its font size and type, and then put that in place. So we can have that here next to our first transition. Then maybe we have another state transition, and you can do that by either clicking on the A tool and create another one, or do what I just did, which is to do a quick copy and paste. So to do a copy and paste, you click Control C and then Control V, and it pastes that object over. So now I've got three of those. Or you could do Edit, Copy, Paste, or just click the text tool to create a new text box from scratch. So I'm going to edit the text in this one and say the patient checks out. Okay, so if patient checks out, they go from admitted to released. And here, the last one is if the patient, or if it's been greater in 2 weeks. So it stays in the release state and stays in our system for 2 weeks, and then at the end, that object is changed into, is removed from the system, and we're at our final state. So there we have a really simple state chart diagram for a patient object in a hospital system where a patient checks in and goes into the admitted state. Once that patient checks out, they are sent to the released state, and then the patient object stays in the system for 2 weeks until it is removed and we hit our final state in our state chart diagram. To create this as an image, we would do the same thing we did for the last two, where we just went to Edit, Select All, and then File, Save As, where we can save it as whatever file type we want, maybe in this case a JPEG. Okay, hopefully that was helpful, and you have good luck working with UML in Visio 2007.